everyone knows that a huge part of Africa is covered by the vast Sahara Desert. No, really, it's gigantic. Even a quick glance at the map says it all. And once you add the numbers, it's a mind-blowing 3,550,000 square miles. An insane amount of sand, dryness, infertility, and a constant desire to sprawl out in every direction. Still, even without mentioning the Sahara, it's hard to call Africa an oasis. Agriculture here is tough, even in countries not directly bordering the mighty and fearsome desert. Take Kenya, for example. This country's constantly trying to survive in its not-so-great farming conditions by digging these crescent-shaped pits that do a great job at catching what little rain there is. Still, the land keeps degrading at an incredible pace. Deforestation, uncontrolled and low-tech farming, overgrazing, and soil salinization are all to blame. And you know, Kenyans are doing their best to fix things. For instance, by using coal. Yep, it can turn barren land into something more fertile. How's that work? Let's figure it out. So here's Kenya. With its 225,000 square miles, it's the 47th largest country in the world. It's home to the Kenyan Highlands, one of Africa's most productive farming regions. Actually, a lot of people know Kenya for its stunning landscapes, greenery, and everything else that pleases the eye of a farmer and a nature lover. However, all of that's packed into not such a huge part of the country. Yeah, if you compare Kenya's rainfall map with those infertile African countries constantly under siege by the Sahara, then it rains a lot here. The southwest of the country, for one, gets blessed with more than 79 inches of skyfall water every year. Plus, the country's southeastern coast looks pretty good for growing plants, too. Most of the country still gets around 8 inches of rainfall, which is clearly not enough to support vast fields that would feed the nation and provide other agricultural goods. Besides that, the country is seriously suffering from deforestation, soil erosion, and land degradation. First off, let's talk about cutting down forests. Why, after all, destroy what's usually a gift in Africa? Something that should be protected with extra care so the already tough situation doesn't get even worse? The thing is, Kenya's a country that's made major progress in energy production over the last few decades, and about 90% of it comes from renewable sources like geothermal plants, hydroelectric stations, and wind turbines. However, despite these achievements, about 82% of urban and 34% of rural households still use charcoal to get electricity. In this country, the resource comes from trees growing in all sorts of landscapes, forests, woodlands, grasslands, farmlands, and even some plantations. To put it simply, wherever a tree can be taken from, it's taken. And it's not even just about necessity. For many Kenyans, cooking with charcoal simply makes food taste better. Because of all this, locals burn through 3.1 million tons of charcoal every year. The outlook isn't reassuring. Experts say that by 2030, consumption will grow by 65%, hitting 5.1 million tons. And right now, just 7.4% of the country is covered in forests. That's 3.6% short of the constitutionally required 10%. As for desertification and land degradation, two major factors play a huge part here. First is rainfall. Yes, some areas do get a decent amount of rain falling from the sky, but it usually comes all at once in a short period of time. At the same time, climate change disrupts the natural pattern of rainy seasons, making them even shorter, which leads to a bunch of floods. And flooding isn't as great for the soil as it might seem because huge amounts of water are hard to catch, so they just run off. And after those short bursts of rain come the droughts. And lately those have been getting stronger and stronger. Sudden heavy rainfall over a short period means water erosion. Research shows that Kenya loses an average of 26 tons of fertile soil per 2.5 acres each year because of it, with some areas losing over 90 tons. Another reason for land degradation and desertification is agriculture and livestock farming. In Kenya, agriculture is the second largest contributor to GDP after the services sector. For example, in 2005, this sector, including forestry and fishing, accounted for about 24%. It might seem like there's nothing wrong with agriculture and livestock farming. Quite the opposite. There are a lot of benefits because there's food to feed the population and things to sell. However, in Kenya, these industries don't use any advanced land-friendly practices. Overgrazing, especially in arid areas, leads to the destruction of vegetation. Without this cover, the soil becomes vulnerable to erosion and compaction, which reduces its ability to absorb water and support plant life. In Kenya's agriculture, irrigation with poor quality water is also widely practiced. As a result, when the water evaporates, it leaves behind salts, which gradually accumulate to dangerous levels. The result? As of 2025, about 40% of irrigated land in Kenya is affected by salinization, which makes it really hard to meet agricultural needs. At the same time, more than 70% of the population depends on agriculture. You get it, right? Further reduction in the amount of fertile land means job losses for a huge number of people. A decrease in food supply means hunger. The shortage of food can be compensated by imports, but that would undermine Kenya's food security. You can't say the country just let everything go to waste waiting for a catastrophe. For example, the population has long adapted to growing various crops and greening their infertile lands through these little crescent-shaped structures. We've talked about them in detail in another video, so now we'll give a brief overview. As we mentioned, Kenya has short but heavy rainfall. The crescents are a kind of dam that catches the water that usually just runs off into nowhere. Seeds are planted there, and thanks to the collected water, they grow, and then everything around them gets green. Of course, this isn't enough, so the inventive Kenyans came up with a brilliant solution. Here we need to remember that Kenya produces a lot of charcoal, Nairobi in particular. In the capital of Kenya, at least 1.6 million pounds of raw, unprocessed lump charcoal is consumed every day. During its processing, waste is generated. According to some sources, 15% of the resource turns into dust in small pieces, and most importantly, dust. It appears literally everywhere there's charcoal. Its tiny particles fall off the main block with the slightest movement. In places where there's a lot of charcoal, the dust is so thick that it forms sizable piles. It was just such dust in Kenya that became one of the solutions to the problem of disappearing forests and soil degradation. They simply put seeds of local plant species, coming from the Kenya Forest Service, into little balls of it. And then, without any preparation, all of this is just dumped onto infertile soil. After that, the balls are either crushed by animals or break down due to other factors, which eventually leads to the germination of the seed inside. The scale of this land transformation is simply enormous. In fact, it's clearly visible on the map. Almost half of Kenya's territory has been invaded by coal seed balls. Is it really effective? Here's a great example. They picked an area where pretty much nothing can grow. Dry, sandy, basically totally barren. But after spreading the charcoal balls, here's what happened. The land clearly got greener. So yeah, the method really works. And if that's not convincing enough, one of the companies that makes these balls shows how they managed to transform the land. In 2017, a certain number of balls were scattered across a barren patch of land in Kenya. Then the company shows what happened to the area 2 years later. Now there's grass and trees growing everywhere. In fact, from a certain angle, it's even hard to tell how barren the place was before it all started. From above, of course, you can still see some thin patches here and there, but just compare it to how it looked before. Same top view. The difference is huge. So once again, we can say that this method really works. But here's the thing. If Kenyans are tossing charcoal balls with a seed inside, then why not just throw seeds without any protection? After all, making those balls is still extra work, even if it doesn't take much time or effort. Remember the strong but rare rains in Kenya? The thing is, seeds might simply not survive until their first rain. Plus, the dry spells between showers are getting longer and harsher. The charcoal ball protects the seeds until the rains come, and after that, it creates a moist environment that helps them sprout. By the way, this makes it possible to toss out seed balls any time of year, no matter how many days the plants will have to wait for rain to fall from the sky. And also, even if a bare seed can survive under the blazing sun for a while, the soil is still barren, so there just aren't any nutrients for it to grow. Same result. The seed doesn't sprout. It dies. That's where the seed balls help again. Charcoal's basically a bunch of concentrated, soluble, organic nutrients that help seeds sprout. Ever seen people deliberately burn old plants? That's what ancient humans did too, since charcoal and ash are packed with plant-friendly nutrients like potassium, calcium, phosphorus, and magnesium. Sure, burning right on the spot's actually bad for ecosystems because it can kill animals, helpful bugs, cause wildfires, and so on. But in the case of the balls in Kenya, nothing is burned on site. They just use the nutrient-rich charcoal dust. This is literally biochar, shaped into little balls. It has an incredibly positive effect on the soil and the plants growing in it, even without factoring in the micronutrients. See, it's extremely porous, which works amazingly for holding both water and water-soluble nutrients. Here's a great example of how it works. Water flows through the soil much faster than through biochar. Thanks to biochar, fewer fertilizers and nutrients get washed away into surface or groundwater, plus it makes a perfect home for lots of beneficial soil microbes. Sounds like a super helpful solution for soil and plants, but that's not all. Biochar also improves water quality and reduces soil acidity. Well, on top of that, it turned out that biochar triggers a systemic plant response to fungal leaf diseases and helps plants deal better with soil-borne pathogens. Basically, charcoal alone is already great for turning barren land into something you can actually grow stuff on, but let's get back to the balls and their benefits. Seeding with charcoal balls doesn't cause transplant shock, which often happens when using plastic bags or something like that. Besides, seed balls help grow long, healthy taproots that aren't cramped by plastic bags. They grow into deeper, stronger plants, and, which is incredibly important for the current conditions in Kenya, those strong, deep-reaching roots that can handle tough conditions are the reason why plants are able to pull water from way down underground, meaning they can deal with droughts better. And, well, animals. Some animals just aim to eat the seeds. Of course, this is completely normal in nature. For thousands of years, the flora of our planet's been dealing with different animals and somehow continues to thrive. However, here in Kenya, on poor soils, the conditions for plant growth are so bad that people would like to avoid any additional decrease in survival because of the animals. Charcoal balls are just something not very appealing to, say, squirrels. Here it is, sniffing everything around, but the ball remains untouched. In general, the protection works, which is good news for the Kenyan farmers. The same thing happens when other animals visit the area, rodents or birds, it doesn't matter. They all ignore the charcoal balls because, well, which animal would want to eat charcoal? Even a monkey sniffed it, thought about it, and dropped it, because fuel for stoves isn't really something you'd want to eat. Also, let's assess the solution from an economic standpoint. Planting the plants the traditional, usual way is a labor-intensive process that takes a lot of time. Therefore, workers need to be paid well. On top of that, there are costs for transporting the plants using trucks and other vehicles, as well as money spent on plastic or other containers. In general, the expenses are pretty high. And here, people just use the seed balls. No need for any containers or way fewer of them because you can move them around even in a regular sack. And you can fit a lot of balls in one sack since 2 pounds of them means about 450 seeds wrapped in charcoal. In short, transport and labor costs are way lower. Plus, these balls are really cheap, just 5 pounds sterling for 2 pounds of them. And to transform 0.4 square miles of dry land, you only need 44 pounds of balls, which means 100 pounds sterling. How else can we cut costs on greening desert areas and speed things up? For example, by using air transport. One enthusiastic guy in Kenya once stuck to the idea planes and helicopters are probably the only way to quickly get all the seed ball spreading done, especially nowadays when GPS lets you drop everything exactly where it needs to go. Then came suggestions aimed at a number of companies offering air transport services. All they had to do was place the seed balls under the seats and let the passengers know so they could grab and toss them. As reported, this way over 20,000 balls were dropped from a helicopter in less than 20 minutes. Of course, you can't load as many charcoal balls into a helicopter as regular seeds, but still, the method absolutely guarantees a more efficient way to scatter them. Actually, restoring Kenya's land and forests isn't just about tossing around charcoal balls. There's also bamboo. Kenya is serious about increasing its forest cover, which is why it's called on its people to plant at least 50 trees on farms, in degraded landscapes, and in cities. And this is where this comes in. This is bamboo, the fastest growing woody plant in the world. Compared to other trees, it's a massive difference. Take cedar or eucalyptus. 5 years after planting, there'll be one stem and the tree still won't be in a condition where you can actually do anything with it. And here's bamboo, which can shoot up to 98 feet tall in just 3 years, and by year 5, it's ready for harvest. On top of that, a single bamboo plant grows several shoots after planting, so in 5 years, you'll have over 20 stalks. Plus, every time bamboo is cut, it doesn't get weaker, it actually grows stronger and speeds up its growth. And let's not forget, bamboo is great at fighting land erosion. Bamboo has a very wide root system which does a great job holding the soil together, trapping incoming water, and also cleaning it from chemicals. Kenyans have already tested the bamboo solution in places with heavily polluted rivers. There, bamboo works as a filter for the harmful chemicals found in the water. Like any other plant, bamboo helps with carbon dioxide. Research from the Kenya Forestry Research Institute showed that it can absorb 30% more of the gas from the air than broadleaf tree species. So should we give up on the idea of planting local trees? Not at all. Because if you plant bamboo the right way, there's a space of 269 square feet left between every 4 plants, which means you can plant a regular local tree somewhere in the middle. Sounds like the perfect plant to green up and enrich Kenya's land. Besides, have you ever eaten a cedar tree? Hard to imagine, we agree. But bamboo, more precisely, its shoots, is totally edible, and Kenyans are pretty into it. On top of that, bamboo can be a great animal feed, and not just for pandas, which, by the way, don't even live in Kenya. Other animals are happy to munch on it too, including cattle. It's also a way to make money. Kenyans have figured out how to cash in on this plant. For example, there's a group of women from the NGO Back to Basics who use bamboo as an alternative source of income as they make things out of it to sell. At the start of the video, we mentioned that charcoal is a vital resource for Kenyans. People simply can't survive without it. And on top of that, tons of trees are being cut down because of it. Bamboo will help with that too, since it can just as well be used for making charcoal and for building. When it comes to house construction, bamboo is already widely used by Kenyans because, like regular wood, it holds up against rain, gives protection from the sun, and also shields from the wind. Bamboo charcoal is made from the stalks or waste of mature bamboo plants burned in kilns at temperatures between 1100 and 2200 degrees Fahrenheit. There's nothing drastically different about it compared to charcoal from other trees, but bamboo fuel does stand out a bit. It pollutes the air less. Basically, bamboo can be grown quickly and in large amounts to restore not so fertile land and then used as fuel instead of trees, which helps reduce local deforestation. And when combined with charcoal balls, planting bamboo might be the most effective solution for Kenya's degraded land.